I think clearly there is a sense in the White House here in Washington that the hope is that diplomacy prevails. But the president maintains that there is the military threat still there that he is willing to use if necessary, if no deal can be reached. In the absence of a diplomatic breakthrough this weekend, would you be supportive of the president resuming military operations and specifically going as far in those as he has indicated he is willing to?
Well, look, we don't know the specifics of what he means by military action. What we do know is that he has 3 leverage points, right? He has the economic, which we've implemented multiple sanctions, sanctioning those who are providing support and equipment and missiles to Iran. We also have the diplomatic, which is going to be taking place this weekend. And then you have the military, which we've seen the decimation of so much of Iran's capabilities, whether it be manufacturing capabilities of drones and missiles, or whether it be the overall components of its military, naval, and air. So, look, I think that we need to really just wait and see what happens this weekend, but I have faith that we'll be able to get a good outcome. Obviously, the Strait is the most important thing right now for us economically, making sure there is that free flow of oil, making sure that these gas prices come down. That is critical for so many of our world partners as well. But we need to make sure that Iran is removed as a threat. And we've already made a tremendous amount of progress in a short time frame. And we'll see now that they are weakened if we will be able to make some more progress in these negotiations, because they are in a much weaker position today than they were just 5 weeks ago. And the president did give them, remember at the beginning of all this, gave them an opportunity to negotiate. They wouldn't negotiate. Maybe now they're rethinking that.
Well, to your point, Congresswoman, about the importance of the Strait of Hormuz economically, you said specifically it is important economically for the United States, which is something that the president has disputed. His argument is that actually when it comes to the energy flowing out of the Middle East, that is much more a concern for other countries, European, Asian ones, not so for the United States. Is that a sentiment that your constituents would agree with, especially as they're looking at prices at the pump, as you alluded to?
Well, he's right in the sense that the oil that is going through that strait really goes to many of our partners in Asia, but it does affect the overall world market. So I think that it is kind of both, a little bit of both. The reality, though, here on the ground, here in my community, as well as parts of the country, gas prices have increased. We need to get those prices back down. We were under $3 a gallon, about $2.89 was the national average. And I think this is a temporary spike. And it is an important long-term investment that is being made for the security of our country, for the Middle East and the world. The reality is we need to make sure Iran is weakened here and that there is regime change. That is important, I think, because they continue to try to kill Americans. They've attacked our military bases. Over the last decades, they've killed Americans. They've killed their own people, tens of thousands of their own people. And we need to make sure that there is a change there, because they are the most destabilizing factor in that Middle East, which affects the entire globe. And so I think the objective here is to come out of this with some type of agreement to open up that strait. If he can get them to turn over any enriched uranium, that's also critical. We need them to stop funding these proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis as well. And that should be really the main objectives of this. And I think, again, they're in a much weaker position today than they were 5 weeks ago. So hopefully the United States in these negotiations can extract those concessions.
Well, and what role should Congress play, if any, in ultimately the finalization of an agreement? As we know, the president didn't ask you and your colleagues first before launching these operations. You didn't have a direct say, but should there be a say in how this ends? Senator Lindsey Graham, of course, who has been an advocate for this war, says any agreement should have a vote in the Senate, that they should get to take a look at it. I wonder if you agree with that notion.
I don't know that we need to have a vote on a particular agreement. The president did abide by federal law. He gave the federal government, or his partners in the federal government, Congress, the 48 hours notice that was necessary. The president does have, under the War Powers Resolution of 1973, 60 days. And so I think after that 60-day period, he certainly should come back to Congress. We should be briefed and updated on what is going on, and we should talk about the next steps together. But I think that we have faith in the president's negotiating ability here. We've seen what he's been able to do with other conflicts around the world, helping mediate conflicts around the world. And he is, known as the deal maker. So let's see what comes out of this weekend before we discuss next steps.
Well, I'd also like to talk about the next steps for lawmakers, for you and your colleagues in the House as you get set to return from recess next week. Pretty quickly, it seems you're going to have to take action on a reconciliation bill to fund at least parts of the Department of Homeland Security. The president wants it on his desk by June 1st. What is your expectation as to how quickly this will get done? And if it is going to be narrowly targeted to just those specific components of the Department of Homeland Security, or if other members may want to be adding things to this package?
I think it's important that we fund the entire Department of Homeland Security. That does include ICE and Border Protection. And just over the last few weeks, we saw multiple American citizens in multiple states killed by people in the country illegally. And it is unfortunate that with the changes that have already been made to ICE, some of the de-escalation that we've seen in cities, as well as the removal of Christine Noem from the agency, the Democrats will not work with us in a bipartisan manner to fund those critical agencies that do important jobs, knowing who is coming in and out of our country and removing those who should not be here. We just saw an 83-year-old man here in New York City killed, being thrown on the subway tracks by somebody who should not have been here and had multiple prior arrests. There was a lack of cooperation between these municipalities and our federal government to have that person removed prior to this 83-year-old veteran being killed. Completely preventable. We've seen that taking place again over the last few weeks in multiple states. So I think that we're going to go in there and fund this agency, and we're going to have to do it with only Republican votes through reconciliation. Then we will work together to get that done. We were hopeful that the Democrats would work with us in a bipartisan manner, but clearly that has not happened. And the reality is this agency needs to be funded. It's the 25th anniversary of 9/11. You have the FIFA World Cup coming. You have all these America 250 events happening. Right. This can no longer be delayed. The agency needs to be fully funded, from Coast Guard to TSA to ICE to CBP to counterterrorism to cybersecurity.
Well, and to be clear, Congresswoman, to get all of the parts of the agency fully funded, are you supportive of the plan to pass the Senate-passed DHS funding bill, ex ICE and CBP, and then handling those portions with reconciliation? That two-track plan, is that one that works for you?
That may be the only way we can get it done, but a lot of members, including myself, would like to see ICE and CBP funded first. Now, if the White House can reassure us that they have the necessary funding to fund those organizations, because we did this in the first reconciliation, we did put additional money in there so ICE can continue its operations and enhance those operations. If they have the resources, perhaps we'll be able to do the other parts first, but I think a lot of members would feel a lot better knowing that we're funding ICE and CBP first, or at the same time as the rest of the department.
Well, and of course, this is Reconciliation 2.0 that we're talking about here. But Congresswoman, I'm sure you're well aware that there's a lot of buzz about a third reconciliation package. In fact, your chair on the House Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith, has suggested if there's going to be one, there's going to be some tax measures included. What would you like to see included in a third reconciliation package? Do you think achieving that is a realistic legislative outcome in a midterm election year?
Look, I think that, well, first of all, what I think we really do need to do is address some of the expiring provisions. We have a film tax credit, there's a NASCAR tax credit, things that are important for our local economies that have expired that need to be addressed. And that could be done in a bipartisan way. It doesn't necessarily need reconciliation, but no doubt that Ways and Means will play a big role if there is a third reconciliation bill. Look, we delivered a significant tax cut for middle-class families. We are seeing the benefits of that take place right now in my district. The SALT deduction is helping New Yorkers. The senior deduction are helping 88% of seniors across the country get refunded to them what they paid in taxes on their Social Security. Tipped workers are seeing an average increase of about $1,300 in savings. So are many overtime workers. So we delivered a significant product that was, yes, tailored to the middle class. But let's not forget the significance of what President Trump did going back to 2016. Now, if you look at 2017 when he came in and passed that initial bill, you have seen tax revenue, despite the tax cuts, tax revenue increase, as well as our GDP significantly from 18 trillion to about $31 trillion.